everybody. Welcome online. Thank you for joining us. And isn't this great? This is so cool. So the last time that we were live on a Sunday evening, it would be almost 5 years ago. It was February of 2020. Don Stewart and David Towle were with me, and I remember bringing up one of our stories. It was about this thing called coronavirus that was threatening. That's February 2020. Jan Markell might have been with me the week before, the week after that, and then everything went like it did. The next event we had live in church was on a Sunday night was Charlie Kirk, just before the last election. And so I'm really excited to have a home for Sunday nights. This is so cool. I want to thank Pastor Tim Thompson for, amen. And thank you everybody for joining us. And by the way, this is really cool. So we have another one coming up October 13th. Naftali is going to be joining us from Israel. Some of you probably follow him. If you don't, you should. And then we have our End of the World Conference coming in November. And people said, why are you calling it the end of the world? Because it's the Friday after the election, and most people are going to think it's the end of the world. So we thought we would, hey, let's just roll with it. But we've added Eric Stackelbeck to the lineup of the speakers. So it's going to be off the charts. Also, Pastor Tim on Wednesday nights, once a month on Wednesdays, he has a lineup of speakers he has coming out. Dinesh D'Souza will be joining him. Eric Stackelbeck will be his first one coming up October 2nd, I believe it is. Also, David Harris Jr. is coming out. Kathy Ireland is going to be here. He has just this fantastic list for Wednesday nights. So we get to do this thing Sunday nights. Right now, it's once a month Sunday night here, and once a month Sunday night or Wednesday night with Pastor Tim and Our Watch. So we have great things that are going to be taking place. And pray for this. I'm hoping that we'll eventually be able to get a taco truck for Sunday nights. Because, so I'm going to ask this question. How many of you were with us way back? This is 2019 and 2018, 2017, and we did burgers on Sunday nights. A few of you remember that. So listen, taco trucks and burgers or something. So we're going to see if we can work out. But I do want to thank Pastor Tim Thompson for opening up the doors. And just one more quick thing, John, then we'll get started. We had today, so this church building just opened. Pastor Tim's been a 412 church, I believe, since 2017. He's been such a great brother and a great friend of mine. And so he had his grand opening yesterday. Like, to give you an idea, the grand opening was yesterday, but he has first Sunday morning in here last week. And had 3 services last week. It was overflow, it was crazy, but they couldn't get all the children's facilities open and everything. It was only this building. Well, this morning, moved into here, had to move it to 4 services, and it was completely packed. It was overflow, it was crazy. And I looked at Tim afterwards, I said, 5, you got, I don't know what he's gonna do. I feel bad for him, but it is so great just to be here and be part of this church. And for those of you who know me for a while, this is now my home church, and I love it. And to be able to partner and be side by side with Pastor Tim. And again, thank you everybody for joining us online. But we're in for a treat tonight. Most of you already know my guest right now, and let's pray, and then we're going to get going. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity. We ask that you would be glorified in the name of Jesus. Amen. And please welcome John Haller. John, thank you.
So I used to go out to the church in San Jacinto. And I didn't go for the burgers, because I went because Pastor Tom was the one guy every Sunday night you could count on him talking about Bible prophecy. And so my in-laws lived in Upland. My stepfather-in-law is still alive. He's 97, still living alone in his house. And he said, when I saw him last year when we were out for the conference at San Marcos, we stayed up there for a few days, And he goes, I think I might give up my car next year. So he's like 97, and by the way, he's a great guy. He was back in the 50s, he lived in Mansfield, Ohio, worked for Westinghouse, and he and another guy were the first guys to write a computer program. They're self-taught, high school graduates. They wrote a computer program, learned the language and everything for a computerized assembly line. It's actually in the computer museum up in Silicon Valley. But he won't use an iPad now. He barely uses his iPad now, so go figure.
That's so cool. So John and I remember meeting you when you popped into church one time. I think Jacob Prash was out for that week. And
Barger.
So that's probably 2008 or something like that.
I don't remember how many times I drove out over the mountain.
You did drive out a lot. I'd be sitting there and all of a sudden you'd show up. And this is great. So John is so much fun to do ministry with because he's such a wealth of information. We're going to be at Huntington Beach on the day of the election, the night of the election. That's going to be exciting.
I'll be mailing in all of my ballots.
And then we'll be here, of course, the whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just going to be so good. Okay, John, we have a lot to talk about. I'm just going to start off with, you look like you want to say something.
No,
Allenby. Let's start off with I'm going to start off with the Allenby crossing today. The news that many of us woke up to. I'm sure most of you haven't heard of it, but
I haven't heard.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, there's a terror attack at Allenby Crossing. And Jackie, was it three? Three Israelis were killed. One of the Israelis that was killed, his son was at the Nova concert on October 7th. He was...
Do you think they're targeting them on purpose? Because if you remember, last Sunday, they found the 6 hostages shot in the head in Gaza.
Yeah.
And then later that day, down in Judea, 3 policemen were killed in a terror attack by a guy, by the way, who was trained to be Palestinian Authority security guy by funds from the United States government. He left that, and now he's a well-trained, well-armed terrorist. And I don't know if what they always say, they neutralized the guy. I don't know if they shot and killed him. Killed 3 policemen, a couple of young, and then a 61-year-old guy whose daughter had died on October 7th fighting the terrorists down along the Gaza border. She was in the IDF.
Wow.
61 years old.
So I'm going to ask you, so as we look at this, it's a big question, and we can't realistically answer the whole thing, but we'll be able to go back and forth in our conversation. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people in Bible prophecy kind of get it, but why does Israel matter so much to people like you and me?
Because so I'll go back to Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN September 22nd last year, almost a year ago. I mean, it seems like it's an eon ago, but if you remember, he got in the well at the UN and he said, we are at a pivot point in history, because they were going to normalize with Saudi Arabia. Ben Salman had given an interview with Brett Baer just a couple days before. So I'm going to say, because it's the pivot point of history. I have a friend, Seth Frantzman. He's an editor one of the editors, op-ed editor at the Jerusalem Post, and he was in Ohio. So we got together and just happened to be on Passover. And he said something to me, because this is how I view it. He's Jewish, okay? He grew up in Maine, made Aliyah. He's married to, I think she's from Ethiopia. They have a couple kids. He's a great guy. Follow him on social media. S. Frantzman on Twitter and Facebook. Read his articles, because he's just absolutely brilliant. He said, well, it's Passover today. I said, I know. It's my heritage too. And that's sort of how I look at it, because I think we're at this period of time where the grafted in thing and Romans 11 and everything, I think we're seeing this play out in a special way. and people are asking questions. So I see all these videos coming from Orthodox rabbis. Moshiach's coming. Moshiach's coming very soon. I don't think they've been doing this for a long time, all along. I mean, it's like there's more of them now. Now, maybe I'm just more aware, but I'm seeing it more and more and more. And sometimes their insights are pretty good. When I was there at the Media Summit in December of 2022, I went down to Orthodox rabbi's home. He's one of the most important people in the Jewish community of Hebron, and we'll probably talk a little bit about that later. But I will tell you, the Torah portion that night was David being sold into slavery by his brothers. So they have kids like 15, 9, and 7. And it was very humbling to me to sit there. Yishai and Malka, the mother and father, they met in law school, so we love that about them. And but they lived down there in Efrat. They made Aliyah. They came from, I believe, if I have the story correct, largely secular Jewish homes, decided to make Aliyah to Israel. But Yishai, I'm telling you what, this guy is Yishai Fleischer. You can follow, he's got the Yishai channel on YouTube. And he is a hardcore Zionist, Israel-loving guy. Okay, so we know the issue that sort of divides us. But it's very humbling to me to sit there with those kids around the Shabbat table and listen to them engage with the text of Scripture. I will say this, unlike any evangelical children I have ever seen in my life. I mean, I grew up in the evangelical church. Their knowledge of the Scripture and their ability to argue it and talk about it and that type of thing at the table was amazing. But have you ever done Shabbat dinner with an Orthodox Jewish family? I am telling you, do you mind if I do this?
If I can tell my story after you're done with yours.
You sure can.
Okay.
So yeah, just sort of, I'll cut off my mic, just.
Every once in a while, I just have to stop John.
Right. They start, the father and mother go around and bless all of say a blessing over the children. Then the children get up and they go bless their mother. Thank you for making a wonderful home. They do this every Shabbat. To me, it really sort of made me like, boy, we've really missed it.
We have, it's so cool. And I know we have a lot of things we're going to be updating you on in just a few more minutes, but just another one of these stories. So I think I told you this before, but I don't know if everybody here's heard it unless you watch me online like all the time, then you probably heard it. But we did a video a couple years ago in Jerusalem. We were overlooking the old city, and it was with a couple of people. Their parents were Auschwitz survivors. They got, and both of them were, and then these two ended up getting married. They're probably 75 years old, I'm guessing, right about there, Samuel and Rivki. And they had their citizenship in Israel and in the States. They live in the Beverly Hills area, but we did a video regarding the Holocaust, and it was just a great interview. They're not believing Jews, right? It's understanding that, what John's saying, these are people who don't believe in Yeshua. And they invited us over to their house for Shabbat lunch. And so we went there and we weren't sure what to expect. We weren't sure if it was going to be just a couple of people or whatever. We went there. There were 5 rabbis there. They all have their wives. The assistant director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, the director of 2 different yeshivas, which are the Jewish schools from that area, all the Beverly Hills, LA area. The house was just full of all these Orthodox Jews. And I can tell you, and so can Glenn, Cheryl, and my wife Jackie, because there was all 4 of us there. It was, like yours, it was one of the neatest experiences I ever had. I would say it was probably the best Saturday I've had in my life. And what it was exactly what you're saying, John. It was, they're going through the Old Testament, but they knew these passages. they're singing, it was so cool. They're singing the songs in Hebrew, and and every single thing was Bible. There wasn't anything that wasn't Bible. Now, this was cool. So we get,
Did they have a band? They didn't have a band or anything?
No band. No, it's all, you know. I mean,
I know.
yeah, you know exactly what it is. They're just, it's exciting. And it was so much fun. And so all the rabbis spoke for about 3 minutes each, which my Jewish friends tell me is very rare. But, and then they said, okay, it's your turn, Pastor Tom. It's your turn to speak. And we want to know this. Why did you make the video? And, I figured I got about 3 minutes. And what I basically said is this: let's deal with the elephant in the room. I said, I believe Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, is the Messiah. You don't. And therein lies our big difference. And then I quoted Prager. They all know Prager, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, you guys all know Dennis Prager said, when he comes, I'll ask him, is this the first time you're here, or is this the second time you're here? But here's the thing that we need to understand. Israel is in a place of rebellion, so they're not believing yet, and we hope to see them in a few weeks when we're in Jerusalem and we will meet with them again. But they're not there yet. Blindness in part has happened to Israel, and John, I would say
until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled.
Yeah, and it doesn't. And when we support Israel, please understand, it doesn't mean you support everything every Jew does, everything Israel does, and we need to make that distinction because, that you get labeled with these labels that are not right, not accurate. But we do understand the God of the Bible. We do understand God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we do understand that God is going to save Israel. Doesn't mean every Jew is going to get saved. But God is moving in that direction. But it was, like you said, John, it was an incredible experience. It was Bible. It was exciting. And it was so cool. But they need to come to that place of knowing Jesus.
But there's a lot of things going on. You and I have talked about that we're at this transitional phase with Jerusalem. And maybe we talk about, I want to talk later sometime about reconciliation in Hebron, the Jordan River, the Allenby Bridge. If you've ever been there, I've been across that. It's a little one-lane bridge, and the river looks like a dry creek bed around Los Angeles that you see everywhere. It's not the mighty Jordan flows or anything like that.
No, the Sea of Galilee is a lake. So let's if you can get that. But okay, so let's go, because what happened at Allenby really ties into Judea, Samaria. And for the record, most of the world calls the area of Judea and Samaria the West Bank. The real name is Judea and Samaria, but hence the world would like to hijack that name, but it is Judea and Samaria.
Well, that was, unfortunately, yesterday at my talk at the Prophecy Conference up in Woodland Hills, you may not believe this, but I got through about 10% of what I had prepared. And I'm just not very good at cutting it off, because when I was a lawyer, I had page limitations on my briefs, or I had 15, they just turn your mic off in a court of appeals at 15 minutes, and it's like, and don't get any ideas.
Make a note of that.
But this is a very, very big issue on many, many levels. So I was talking to Moshe Davis from the IDSF, Israeli Defense and Security Forum. Amir Avivi, who's the head founder of that. And the West, I'll call it Judea and Samaria, is a hotbed of terrorism, Iranian funding, and they're smuggling weapons across the Allenby border. They're coming across at both crossings. It is a huge problem. And the fear is, so I have friends who live in Efrat. Carolyn Glick lives down there. The people I met, Jonathan Feldstein, who I've done a number of interviews with from the Genesis 123 Foundation. They're concerned, and Jonathan tells me he lives in Efrat. He said, I'm on the 8th floor. I look out my back, and there's a mosque half-mile away. We used to hire all these people who were Palestinian Arabs, which is a fake term that was made up by the Russians back in the 60s. But they used to come across by the tens of thousands, they're 20,000 a day coming from Gaza before October 7th. And they're making money in Israel and they go back home. And Jonathan told me, and I think we did this on air, my family's never hiring them again. My children are never hiring them again, and I doubt that my grandchildren will. So it's a complete, total separation now. But he says, there's no fence between me and that mosque. And I think about it. Brandon told me that the soldiers coming home from Gaza are suffering from post-traumatic PTSD, or whatever it's called, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it's affecting their marriages, and it's horrible. And you need to understand, Israel's a small country, and they go from 150,000 to 350,000. The soldiers are getting worn out. You can't deploy soldiers for years on end. I mean, America's proved that to be the case, right, with all the wars we've been involved in. So you need to pray for them, but it's a very dicey situation. The Palestinian president, not Abbas, but the next guy, I don't know if he's prime minister or president, Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen is his real name. He got a PhD from Moscow University denying the Holocaust. That was his PhD paper at Moscow. And I think he was at a meeting with Putin last week, and he's in the 17th year of the 4-year term that he was elected to. It's totally corrupt. It's out of control. The IDF just did, as the Palestinian prime minister, I think it is, said this is the largest IDF operation in the West Bank ever. That's just taken place over the last couple of weeks.
Let me see if Craig can hear me. Is there a way to pull up a map of Israel on here so I can make sure there's not? Okay, bummer. Okay, so we'll get these things worked out by next time. But when you look at Judea and Samaria, for example, if you take Jerusalem, half of Jerusalem is in Judea, right? Or all of it is actually. But if you take the West Bank part, half of Jerusalem is. You start dealing with the issue of the Temple Mount. If you've ever been on the Mount of Olives, the Mount of Olives is in the West Bank. And so you start realizing you've got a huge problem. I remember talking with you, it was months ago, Caroline Glick had stated, she went on record saying the problem in Judea and Samaria is basically is not like Hamas is a big group. Hezbollah is a huge terrorist group, but in Judea and Samaria, you almost have like gangs. And there are countless groups like this, and they all hate Israel. And they all have this Hamas mindset. They're not as well organized, but you've got Iran funding them, and you do have enough organization. So if you start taking gang-related areas, and then you throw in Iran funding, and they're much more violent. You think gangs in America are bad? This is much worse than that. So, but they're inside your own territory, and that's what the problem is. It's inside your territory. So with Gaza, you still have this area that's yours. When you look at Hezbollah, you have Lebanon, you have Syria, that's yours. So they're fighting there, they're fighting here, but is there something up there now? Okay, there is. So this is you guys can all see this over here, where you have Jerusalem. This basically, the Judea and Samaria are this area here, right? That's basically it. Right in the middle. So here's Jerusalem. Sorry about that. You guys on that side have to figure it out. But over here, so you have, so this is Bible times names. So this is Jordan over here. This is the mighty Jordan River, right? But you got, this is the area we're talking about. Okay, here's another map. So it says West Bank. It's this, right? And Craig, if you can go back to the first map, I'll show everybody something here. So we are going to be talking about Shechem. I just saw Shechem.
Nablus. It's up by Nablus.
Right here. Here's Shechem right here. We're going to be going there in a minute and talking about some things too, but it's inside. You guys all catch that, even though you didn't see my hand moving over? You guys are smarter. You're smarter than this half? Wow, did you hear that? That's bad. That's bad. I wouldn't put up with them.
Throw down at 412 Church, yeah.
Well, I just divided the church.
So the IDSF, Israeli Defense and Security Forum, you should follow them. They do a briefing every day at 10 a.m. Eastern, so you can get it with your morning coffee here in California. Gerald Miravivi, Danny Seaman, Moshe Davis, Cooper Wasser. I mean, all these great guys they bring in. They're very good. They keep it to 30 minutes, and they're talking about what's going on. And they've done surveys in the area of Judea and Samaria and the Arab population, and they find the support for Hamas there is somewhere between 85 and 95%.
That's wow.
Among the Arab population. The concern too, though, is among the Arab population within Israel, what they would call Israel boundaries, is very bad as well, and support Hamas. I'm telling you folks, this is such an intractable problem. So I sit there, and I know we're doing a thing with Bill Salas tomorrow, and there's this passage in Ezekiel 38 that talks about dwelling in peace and safety. And I will tell you, in the natural, I have no way to explain how that happens, given what happened on October 7th. It is like beyond my comprehension.
Especially looking at it now. We'll work that out this week. Everybody can watch it with you and Bill.
Yeah, we'll have the definitive answers by tomorrow morning.
That'd be great.
Although record that, yeah. No, but I Tom, it's just because I'm so concerned. I have friends who live there,
yeah.
And it's on a knife's edge, and that's separate from the political internal turmoil in Israel. That's not very good right now as well.
No, it's not. Caroline Glickett also pointed out with, I think it was Amos Hochstein. So Amos Hochstein's what? He's an Israeli businessman.
Born in Israel, but has his U.S. citizenship.
And he served as a liaison for the Biden administration. And he was trying to basically make a deal, say, we'll make the rockets from Hezbollah go away, Netanyahu, if you just comply with U.S.
So can I just do a little riff on Amos Hochstein? This guy served as the Mideast energy czar in the State Department in the first two Obama administrations. After he left the Obama administration, of course, there was a guy named Donald Trump who won the election in 2016. Amos left, and it's like a revolving door. Guess what? He went into the energy industry. He worked for a company down in Houston that's very big in liquefied natural gas, LNG. So Israel has gas deposits. Now, I don't think they're a significant thing, but Israel could supply all the gas that was lost from Russia because of the conflict. Israel, if they had a way to get the gas there, they could have done it because they have that much excess. I mean, they have enough gas to serve Israel's needs for 600 years and that's before they found a bunch more. But there's one way to do it. You can do it by pipeline. And then Erdogan and Turkey gets involved. He said, I want the pipeline to come to Turkey, because we got pipelines going across Turkey. Because what's he want? He wants his cut. He wants his transportation tax fee that he's going to get. So he tried to block it by developing it's called exclusive economic zone between Turkey and Libya, which is in the midst of a civil war. And by the way, the gas production in Libya is almost completely shut down now because of the conflict, which is significant. I mean, that was one of the major oil and gas producers. So the other way to do it would be to get it to a port, liquefy it. You got to cool it down to really low, like minus 200 degrees, and then transport it across the ocean in tankers, and then offload it and regasify it and put it through a pipeline. But Israel couldn't get they were lining. I mean, you remember all the pictures? We're gonna do this pipeline to Europe, prosperity. Someone intervened. His name was Amos Hochstein and the Greens. Well, we don't want hydrocarbon-based economies anymore. We're moving away from that, and the pipeline would be too expensive. And it would be technically difficult, take about 5 years. But let's just, oh, by the way, the U.S., we just happen to have these new LNG plants coming online, and we can supply all the liquefied natural gas from companies in Houston. And I'm still researching, but probably related to Amos Hochstein. Then he went and did the maritime border, where Israel gave up a lot of it. That was a year Lapid was the prime minister when that was like. And now he's running around Lebanon, over there all the time. And he's saying, well, Israel, there's this place, it's called Sheba Farms, give it up. And you'll have peace with Hezbollah. Oh, and give this, there's like 13 big disputed. Sheba Farms is the Golan Heights. Have you been to Tel Dan? That's Sheba Farms. Okay? Israel took that back in 67. It's the strategic high ground. And our government is pushing that, funding it. They want Israel to give it up. And everybody who talks about the West Bank and giving that, creating a Palestinian state, the two-state solution, that's baloney. Because when all this started, there was a two-state solution. You go back to the 1920 San Remo Agreement, you had Israel west of the Jordan, Transjordan east of the Jordan, for the Arabs, for the Jews. Everybody in the world agreed to that, and now they don't want to create a two-state solution. Now it's going to be a 3 or 4 state solution. Jordan, Israel, West Bank, Gaza. And everybody's doing the Trump peace plan in 2020, divided Israel. Let's be brutally honest about it. That divided the land. By the way, that Bill Koenig was at the conference. Bill's a longtime friend. He said, that peace plan came out on a morning in January 2020. That afternoon, Peter Navarro said, we have a major problem with what I'll call Charlie Vector 019er. All hell broke loose the same afternoon, that same day that Trump's plan proposed dividing Israel. I think they're directly connected.
You all know what Charlie Vector 019er is, right? Okay.
That's code.
That's code for something. Looking at this, I want to bring it to Shechem.
Okay. So why I think Shechem is important is because it shows Israel's right to the land.
Let's go back to the Jewish history of Shechem and walk through there, and you'll all get the connection on why it's such a big deal. You look at it now, it's a bunch of rocks. Well,
So Pam and I, in 2017, we were over there, and some friends made arrangements for us to go around Judea and Samaria for several days, just Pam and I and a guy named Joel Kramer. Now, I hope you all know Joel Kramer. You should go to his YouTube. Well, we would all love to have the YouTube channel views that Joel Kramer is getting on archaeology stuff and rocks and old rocks. I mean, he's putting himself getting like 2-3 million views.
Yeah, on rocks.
Yeah,
listen, I'm going to say this. You need to watch his YouTube channel.
Expedition Bible.
It's very engaging archaeology, which is not easy to do. And you will learn things that you need to know. But anyways, that being said.
So we were up at the Herodian and looking over you can see from Hebron all the way down. You just can't see the Temple Mount, but you can see the Mount of Olives. You get the whole lay of the land. You can see how the water came from Hebron downhill all the way to supply the water at the Temple Mount. And by the way, it's at the Temple Mount. It's not down in the city of David. Just stop spewing that nonsense. But anyway, So this guy goes walking by. He's got dust all over him. He's got that little like hanky thing around his hat. He's caked with dirt. And Joel, he's like getting the vapors. He's like, and I'm like, what are you? He goes, that guy is the greatest field archaeologist in human history. And I said, oh, so to you, he's a rock star. And he thought that was pretty good. So he took us around, and I'll talk a little bit about Hebron later and maybe Mamre, but he took us to Shechem. We went to Jacob's well, and it's near the ancient city of Shechem. This is where Abraham came. He built an altar there. Jacob bought a well there. You can go there today. Let me just say this. There is no doubt that is Jacob's well. It's a very deep well. I poured water in. It took 4.5 seconds till it hit water.
And it does say deep well. It's in John 4, the Samaritan woman where Jesus meets. The well is very deep.
That's right. It says it right in the text. And by the way, so that was like the ultimate PowerPoint. She says, well, we worship God on that mountain, pointing up to Mount Gerizim, and you worship in that mountain down there in Jerusalem. And Jesus said, yeah, but there's a day coming when people will worship in spirit and truth. And you can go sit in that place. But then we went over to the tell at Shechem. And one of the things, go watch Joel's video on Shechem. I think it's just been put up a few weeks ago. It's probably up over 1 million views already, 2 million views. I'm so excited that this is that bias book, by the way, where God came down. You'll get like everything we got from the Joel tour that we had in 2017. And at Shechem, the thing that happened was there were standing stones that were erected by the Canaanites, but also by the Jews, because it made a statement as to what had happened there. So, for example, when they came across the Jordan, they erected 12 stones. And I believe those were referred to by Jesus, that God is able of these stones to raise up whatever. And so they were there at Jesus' day, but then at Shechem, there's a stone. It's about 7 feet high, but they found what the guy thought, the archaeologists back in the 1920s, they started excavating. By the way, this is all like within the last 100 years that this has come to the surface to confirm the Bible in the land with the people of the book in the land back in the land. That's why it's all coming to the surface. They found what they thought was a watering trough. The guy says, oh, so they got these watering troughs. There's one here by the ancient temple that we found. There's one over here, and then there's this one here. But the one watering trough was open on each end. Well, water's not going to stay there, right? So he said, hey guys, let's get this stone that's laying next to it. They picked it up and they dropped it in the trough, and it was a perfect fit because it was a foundation for the stone to be erect. So then they found one. It originally was it was like 27 meters long, but it was broken in a few pieces. So they put one in. But you can read about it in Joshua chapter 24. Joshua calls them in and he says, you got to renew the covenant. And he said, who are you going to serve? Oh, we'll serve the Lord. We'll serve the Lord. And it says there in Joshua 24, near the end of the chapter, he erected a stone by the temple in Shechem. And you can go there today. It's hard to get to. It's in Noble. It's probably not the best place to go right now.
Probably not this week.
I have been there. I've touched the stone that Joshua erected at Shechem. It's got Palestinian graffiti spray painted on it now. Watch the video. But Joel made a great point. He said, listen, when the stone was found, the stone was broken in pieces, and it was symbolic of the way the Jewish people the Hebrews had violated their covenant that they made with God that day. And they were broken people. but God's bringing them back. And there's so many passages where God talks about bringing them back. And he says, and listen, we always, I'm bothered sometimes because everyone says, well, look at those Jews. They don't believe in Jesus. And hey, are we really all that great? And Joel made a great point in his last video. He said, listen, we all come to Jesus as broken. And Jesus puts us back together and helps us stand as a witness and testimony so we can be standing stones for him. And so it's very powerful. And you stand there and there's like an ancient temple fortress and the walls are real thick. You can stand on right next to the standing stone. Everything fits. By the way, I think this is a scandal. It's hard to get there. I grant that. We went there on a Friday morning while they were in mosque. You can hear the blood-curdling imams, speaking these, I don't know Arabic, but I'm pretty sure that was not love your neighbor. I heard all over Nablus. When you drive into Nablus, every intersection, every single intersection is a martyr square. Has a picture of a guy smiling, all dressed up, flowers around and everything. It's based on a picture taken of the guy on the morning before he went into Israel to do a suicide bombing. And there was a suicide bomber that didn't make it to the synagogue in Tel Aviv recently. He came from Nablus. So it's there, right near and so we go over there, and there's a Dutch museum or whatever, and it's Friday, so they're all off. So we just walked out. We were the only people there all day long. And I just say I'm saddened that the truth of the history of what's there is not accessible in Israel. So when we left Nablus, we got stopped at a checkpoint. And the Orthodox Jewish young guy, 21, he goes, we had to negotiate our way through the checkpoint. And there's the Arab guys. So while Joel's doing that with the soldiers, Pam and I are sitting in the car, and these Arab guys are standing right there, and they're going, hey, your friends up there, just get behind the wheel and drive up there and ram those soldiers. Now, at first I thought they were joking, and I thought about it later. They were trying to get me to do a terrorist attack. So they're following the Iranian model, get somebody else to fight your battles. So they wanted me to do it because I would have got shot and killed, but the Orthodox Jewish soldier says, you guys shouldn't be there. And Joel says, I know, that's why we want to leave. He goes, why didn't you go into Nablus? We went to Shechem. And the soldier goes, tell me about it. I'm Orthodox Jewish, born in Israel. I cannot go there. I cannot go to it is the place I want to go more than anything in my life, because it's so important to the history of my people in this land. And I cannot go there. Anyway, it's a scandal.
Shechem is, I wish I could go there. I know even now.
It would be different. It wouldn't. Your wife would freak out.
She already got caught in one rocket barrage when we were in Israel. She doesn't want to get caught in another one. I took her to the wrong area.
That's right.
But I would not take a tour group there, but I would take my wife. What does that tell you? She said, sure, I'll go.
For better.
Actually, this is what happened, John. She was worried that if I went, I might not come back, so she didn't want me to be disappeared. So she went with me. Now that's a loving wife, isn't it? Yeah,
but it's such an important historical area to biblical history and everything.
I'm going to come back to this
and
in a minute.
Prophecy.
So Shechem, Shiloh or Shiloh, these are places that I don't. The way it is right now, even Shiloh might be a little bit difficult to go to. I was just in March. It was just outside. It was where Jacob's ladder was.
Bethel.
It was with Bethel. That was great, Bethel. Went with Roddy.
Right over the hill is
with Roddy, who Roddy is probably watching right now.
Hi, Roddy.
We're looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks. He's in the Old City. He was also a lawyer, Jewish lawyer. He moved to Jerusalem, got saved. And but Roddy's a great brother, so he took us there. Okay, now with that, I want to come back to these And I also want to come back to the Pilgrim Road, and I want to come back to reconciliation. But I want you to help everybody understand, because you're so good at helping us to understand what is really going on there, the dire condition and the threats against Israel, just how serious they really are. They have enemies on 7 different fronts.
It's probably 10, but if you include media and that type of thing.
If you include media, that's the real problem. So Israel can win a physical war. The problem is that, the threat of physical war is growing to the point where it's going to be unbelievable. Only God will save them.
Well, what if there are tunnels in the Judea and Samaria?
Well, that is okay. So speak to these things, because we know the tunnels in Gaza. We know the tunnels up north, right? The Golan Heights, Dan, that whole area. We know that. You start thinking Judea and Samaria tunnels. This is bad. Can you speak to the situation that they are really looking at in Israel?
Look, I'm going to look at it as I'm a lawyer, so I'm kind of a pragmatic guy. And sometimes lawyers have to sort of deliver the bad news to their client. Like, you're not, like I've told clients, this judge hates you. You will not win this case at trial, but I will win for you in the Court of Appeals. And that's happened. But you got to tell them the truth. You can't sugarcoat it. And so I'm looking at it from a pragmatic, sort of human analyst standpoint, and I am very, very, I don't know how to convey the depth of my concerns. When at Gaza, they thought there were 200 miles of tunnels in a thing that's 40 miles long. Now they're finding that it's like 600 miles. The tunnels across the Philadelphia quarter, the Egypt border, you can drive trucks through. And so now everybody says, well, just withdraw from the Philadelphia border and we'll get our hostages back and then we can worry about, listen, the Al-Sisi government, okay, he's fighting this like crazy. Why? Because they make a lot of money taking graft off the aid and everything and the reselling, and it's like the mafia. I mean, I sometimes I feel like, my wife hates this, but I really like, it's the sanitized TV version of The Godfather. I love that movie. And what you have in the Palestinian areas is you have the crime families, the tribal crime families. Mordecai Kedar talks about this. There will never be a united Palestinian government because they're tribes that hate each other, just like you were saying a little bit earlier, incredibly perceptive. And so Mordecai Kedar's theory about, well, we could maybe make the Arabs get along if we did the United Arab Emirates, because that's like 7 tribes that have united together to elect one prime minister, one leader. But so each tribe gets a little bit. And so like Mahmoud Abbas is from up north, the Palestinian tribes down in Hebron and the south hate him. They hate him more than anybody. And so it's just all corrupt. So Al-Sisi in Egypt, his family is making millions of dollars off the Philadelphia quarter smuggling operation. And now he's trying to protect that. And now he's getting into war with Ethiopia over that damming up of the Nile River. It's called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD. As I said, it's giving Egypt a big case of heartburn because they're afraid that 97% of the people in Egypt live along the Nile River. Go look at a map of Egypt at night, like this little sliver of people in a big country. And it's all so connected. So now Ethiopia and Egypt are getting into it. Ethiopia and Somalia are getting into it. Egypt's coming out with the Somalia. Sudan's getting involved. Libya's getting involved. And the Russians and Iranians are all over down there. And now another guy has come in and he's exerting incredible influence across Africa because of the resources that are not only minerals and that type of thing that are untapped, but people. People are going to become increasingly important. Why? I think I'm the only Bible prophecy guy that talks about this. The demographics of the Western world are collapsing. Birth rates have fallen to historical lows. Japan it's been known in Japan for a long time that they sell more adult diapers than baby diapers.
Wow.
Japan lost a year ago 1 million people in population. Did you know that? This year they will lose 2 million. In December 2022, published in the Tehran Times, that's an Iranian mouthpiece newspaper, Iran has suffered the most rapid decline in female fertility in human history. And so I think this plays into Bible prophecy. China's collapsing, Japan, Russia is collapsing, Turkey's doing okay, but these countries like Iran and Russia, their leaders know this is happening, and they know the demographics. Who is it? Peter Zion, who used to be with Friedman at Stratfor, and then he's on his own now. And he's kind of a goofy guy in some respects, but he has some good insights. So he does nice little 5-minute videos. He said, demographics is destiny. Our country is collapsing demographically. Do you know why there's no workers at McDonald's? Because there aren't any. We haven't been having kids. We have aborted 60 million, 65, 75 million children. Chickens are coming home to roost, folks. I know it sounds dire, but so the guys in Russia, the Ayatollahs in Tehran, China knows this. Like if they're going to cement their place in history, I believe it's pushing them to do something now in the near term. That's my view.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense because we know biblically
I know
where it's going to go. But I mean, when you put the numbers in there like that, you see where we really are. I read today in the U.S., the jobs are all going to illegal aliens. And we will say illegal aliens here, by the way.
Yeah, go do a Google on immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. 45 miles from my house. It's like 30% of the area, probably 50,000 people. It's all immigrants, recent immigrants. 30%. It's completely overwhelmed social services. The city is collapsing. It's totally out of control. It's by design. We all know this. And the border czar, who's running for president on one party, she called herself the border czar. I'm sorry. Yeah. We get gaslit like about 80 times a day. Told outright lies by the media and everything. It's incredible.
Gaslighting, funny, I was thinking of today, y'all know where the term gaslight came from? It came from a movie, I think it was in 1938. It was set in 1938, I believe. And it was this husband, and he had a wife he didn't like, and he decided to drive her crazy, right? Because he was a bad guy. So what he did is outside their bedroom window, there were gas lamps, and he would loosen up the lamp so when she would look outside at night, it would flicker. And she'd say, honey, the gas light's flickering. It's not flickering. And it was a total lie. He made sure it was flickering, but he told her it wasn't. His intention was to drive her crazy. That is what the term gaslighting is. And it's working. How many times a day are we lied to? All day long. 80 times a day is not an exaggeration.
Yeah,
when we have the border czar, who then uses the Trump wall to say, I'm here.
It's my idea.
This is my idea. I'm here to make sure you're all protected. What do we have? We know there's Chinese nationals. I know just east of Hemet, about 6 miles, there's a Chinese camp out in the mountains. Unfortunately, the sheriff knows it too, and we have a very good sheriff in this county. But we have Chinese nationals, we have Islamic radicals. Iran has what? 2,000, was it 2,000 or 20,000 terrorists that are in this country that our government knows about. You look at this, you start thinking sleeper cells. Then you throw in the cartel, you throw in sex trafficking, you throw in the Chinese drug of choice that comes across the board, you throw in fentanyl. It is intentional. And by the way, all these people get to vote without an ID.
But you can't go. I have to pull my ID out all the time. Like airport, and I checked into the hotel the other day for the conference. Hey, we need an ID. Why? Well, because I want to make sure who you are, who you say you are, before we give you a room key. Okay. Oh, but you'll give me a ballot to vote on president and people that run the country without an ID. Okay, I got it.
The only places that you have to have voter ID for are in the places it doesn't matter, right? But the places that does matter, no, we don't need an ID. Isn't that, so it isn't, okay.
So we're off track.
We're way off track. So let me get back to Israel. The reason why Israel is in dire straits, and then I know we'll wrap this up pretty soon. We got a few more minutes. But the dire straits of Israel, it is enormous threat against them. And before I sidetracked you, you were talking about Russia, the condition they're in, Iran, the condition they're in. They know they're in trouble.
Right, and that's why Iran has developed this method of war of operating through proxies, but Russia does it too. Putin was just down in Chechnya last week, which is an Islamic radical example. Remember the terror attack on the school back in Beslan, back in, 20 years ago, hundreds of kids killed? Putin made peace with that. I mean, the guy, it was the father, and now the son runs it, Kadyrov. He's a terrorist. There are eyewitness testimonies of him just not liking somebody and just pulling out a gun and shooting him, like a mafioso. But he's Islamic, and there is Putin, who a lot of people say, oh, the great Christian value, Putin, kissing a gold leaf Quran in Chechnya last week. Kissing a Quran. Because he'll use that. Because Putin, by the way, Putin has a massive Muslim problem. The Muslim population of Europe, of Moscow, is about 30%. There's been a lot of reports for years that Russia is on the verge that half of the Russian army will be Islamic. Now, factor that into like Ezekiel 30, and I've said this for 25 years or more, and as have some other guys. What's the hook in the jaw that brings this country down from the north? So we can argue about whether it's Russia or not, and we know Turkey's involved. But Putin, when he went into Ukraine, said one thing: I'm coming in here, what's he going to do? I'm going to protect ethnic Russians that are being abused by the Ukrainians. So that's why I'm taking over these areas in the east. And I think we've talked about this, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. You go to northern Israel, and there are a lot of Jews, but they're all from Russia. They're speaking Russian. I ran into some in Nahariya. And they're all over the place, like a couple million. Will Putin do something to protect the ethnic Russians? Well, is that the hook in the jaw that brings him down? And who would he bring with him? And I've used that picture many, many times. I just used it in the thing yesterday. When Trump said, I'm moving the embassy to Jerusalem, December 2017, what happened? Erdogan calls a massive organization of Islamic countries, all 56 of them, all 57 states. Did somebody else talk about 57 states once, like a guy named Obama? He kind of got the wrong number of states. It was the number of Islamic states that he talked about. But he brought them to Istanbul, and he said, listen, he put up a map in one of his papers. It's like the best Ezekiel 38 map, better than any of us Bible prophecy guys put up, showing all the Islamic nations, the Central Asian, Russian nation, Islamic nations. So maybe Putin cuts a deal and says, listen, if you Islamic guys leave me alone, I'll help you get rid of Israel. Maybe that's the deal that's going to come some point. That's what I thought for a long time.
It's fascinating to watch all of it. I'm gonna bring it now back to Shechem and the Pilgrim Road and certain things.
Okay, so let's do Hebron and the Pilgrim Road.
Okay, let me read this first.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. I love this because it all ties into what you're gonna say. It's Psalm 102. The psalmist wrote, "But you, O Lord, shall endure forever, and the remembrance of your name to all generations. You will arise and have mercy on Zion, for the time to favor her. Yes, the set time has come." All right, so you put it in context. When's the set time to show this favor? It launches us into the time when Jesus comes back at the end of the tribulation, and he establishes the millennial kingdom. So it jumps forward to there.
I'm jealous for Zion.
I'm jealous for the time to favor. Yes, that time's come. This is it. Ready? I love this. This is why I like Joel Kramer so much. For your servants take pleasure in her stones and show favor to her dust, or literally delight in her dirt. This is so cool. So the nations shall fear the name of the Lord, all the kings of the earth your glory, for the Lord shall build up Zion, he shall appear in his glory. I love this. They will take pleasure in her stones, delight in her dirt. That is what is happening right now. When you look at Shechem, you look at Shiloh, Pilgrim Road, you look at all of these different dynamics. How many of you have been to Israel? Okay, well, that's what you see, and I can't wait to get back there. And by the way, a reminder, on November 8, 9, and 10, we do have the End of the World conference here. Remember, it's not the end of the world, but people will think it's the end of the world, and it's going to be great. John will be one of the speakers here. But John, let me turn it back over to you for this.
So I think I maybe can do this in 3 points, kind of, because I know we're kind of short on time. So go to Hebron. That's the tomb of Machpelah. By the way, go get the Route 60 video that David Friedman and Mike Pompeo did it's on TV, and you can get it on Netflix, every place. You need to watch this. Dave Friedman has a book out now about a one-state solution. You need to get that book. You need to get Seth Frantzman's book on the October 7th War. I mean, there's a lot you need to read, homework you need to do. But at Hebron, there's this, first you have Mamre, where Abraham got the promise of a son. I've been there many times. And then Hebron at the tomb of Machpelah, where Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah are buried. It's in a cave underneath the building. Herod built this building 2,000 years ago. It still stands, stood through earthquakes and everything. This guy was incredible. Go look up a picture of the cave of the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron. Jewish tradition, by the way, says that the cave where Abraham, the bones are, it's also a cave where another couple was buried. And their names were Adam and Eve. That's Jewish tradition. But the other thing that happened there was, so Jewish thought, pattern is prophecy is pattern, pattern is prophecy. So the rabbis view the whole book of Genesis as a prophetic pattern for all of human history. And so you go to Genesis, I think it's Genesis 35 or so, at the funeral of Isaac. And it just says Jacob and Esau came. The rabbis take that, and what they believe is that is a picture of the ultimate reconciliation between the people of Jacob, the Jews, and the people of Esau, which are the Ishmaelites and the Arabs. And it will happen at Hebron someday, because that's the pattern. Now, Tom and I have talked about this. You've been on the Pilgrimage Road, right? Mm-hmm. In Jerusalem. They hoped to open it, but everything got shut down on October 7th, so maybe it's been delayed a bit. So I've been down to the pool, Siloam, and everything. I was talking to people in the city of David there. 2 things. One said, what do you want to do with this? We want Christians and Jews to come here and walk up from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount, singing together the Psalms of Ascent. You read about them in Psalms, 120 through 133 or something?
Yes, I believe that's exactly what it is.
It's
yeah.
after 119.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did a teaching once, a sermon on Palm Sunday, and I said, they were singing the right thing, but at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
But I say this is millennium practice. When we have this grafting back in, this reconciliation between us and them, when we're not all broken stones again, we'll be united in worship of Mashiach. Now we know who he is, and so I'm trying to figure out how this reconciliation things takes place. But so I was at the Pilgrimage Road, and our guide, I wish I could remember his name. That guy was fantastic, Orthodox Jew. He said, right here in the sewer line underneath the Pilgrimage Road, Jerusalem ended in 70 AD. They found coins that the rebels they made coins, and they're like, for the hope of Zion is what they say on them. You can see them there, and they have one embedded there. And he said, I came here last year with my father. He was 11 in World War II. He went through 13 concentration camps and survived. And he said, when he got here, he says, I want to go down in the sewer because I want to feel again the oppression I felt in World War II and the oppression that my forefathers felt at 70 AD when they were going to destroy Jerusalem. Because I never want to forget that, but I'm so blessed that I'm able to come here today in Jerusalem again with my son. It is just such an incredible thing that we're seeing unfold right in front of us. And it's related to prophecy. I mean, you think of Ezekiel 35, bring you back into the land. When you don't deserve it. By the way, when it says, doesn't it, Ezekiel 36, I'll bring you back into the land, you don't deserve it, but it's my name is at stake, and I will bring you back in the land, and I will give you a new heart, a heart of flesh. Do you understand that we're on the cusp? These prophecies are sort of like unfolding right in front of our eyes. And they're not done yet, I'm not sure I understand how they're going to be done. Jesus himself, in Matthew chapter 24, I think there's an embedded prophecy in there that I see. He said, when you see the abomination of desolation, flee and pray that it not be on Shabbat, because you won't be able to travel. But what does that imply? It implies that when this thing happens, Jerusalem is under Jewish control. Try to get a cab or a bus on Shabbat in Jerusalem. And Jesus was telling us, listen, when this happens, when you see this, think about it. Jerusalem will be under Jewish control. And it is now. So isn't this more now the time than it has ever been for all this stuff to unfold?
I look at it, I believe it's Amos that wrote, you will never be uprooted again. Isaiah chapter 11, I'll bring you back a second time. Ezekiel, what's interesting about the Ezekiel 36 passage also, and I think this is where a hang up is with a lot of people who say Israel doesn't deserve to have the land. Well, God says they don't deserve to have it in Ezekiel 36. Do we deserve grace? No, I mean, it's a weird thing. For some reason, a Gentile Christian will look at that and forget that we don't deserve God's grace and mercy, right? But with Ezekiel, what God says in Ezekiel 36 is, look, everywhere that I sent you throughout the whole world, you profaned my name. It's exactly what he says. But because my name is on the covenant, which I swore to your fathers, I will bring you back into the land. And then he says again, even though you profane my name, I'm going to do it. You don't deserve to have it. but we don't deserve to have grace. We don't deserve to have mercy. And then he says, I'll bring you back into the land and I will give you a new heart. He brings them back in unbelief, but we also know that they will be in belief. Ezekiel 37 is the passage of the dry bones. And I will speak to them. I will breathe into them and they will come to life again. So we see these.
But Ezekiel 35 talks about the fact that when this starts to happen, there will be people in the mountains of Israel that will say, no, this is our land.
Yeah, well,
is that happening now?
Yeah, you look at this, it's so fascinating when you look at all of these things with Ezekiel. All the prophets, if you look at them and you take them literally, they start to make sense. And you can make these connections. When I think of the Pilgrim Road, and I know we're about out of time, but when I think of the Pilgrim Road, for those of you who have been to Israel before, and maybe you weren't aware of it, but where the Pool of Siloam is, or Shiloach, is you probably visited that, right? Pool of Siloam. It's in the city of David. Hezekiah's tunnel, the water runs out there. Okay, it's at the bottom there. And when John was talking about the Psalms of Ascent, I get excited. David writes in Psalm 122, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. And it's exciting. It's also Psalm 122 where you pray for the peace of Jerusalem. But when the Jews would make their way to Jerusalem for any of the feast days, time of Jesus, before Jesus, the things they would do is they would sing the Psalms of Ascent. They're dirty, they're dusty, they're coming up the wadi.
So they go to the giant mikveh at the Pool of Siloam.
The giant mikveh at the Pool of Siloam, and then they would walk up the Pilgrim Road to the temple. This is exciting when you have these things are being discovered and found in all these different areas. And I wholeheartedly agree. God is preparing something for what is coming. And to me, John, to sing the songs of ascent when you're in Jerusalem, just walking through Jerusalem, or just repeating them if you.
That's what they did on the Pilgrim Road 2,000 years ago.
They did. And it's so exciting. It's the Pool of Siloam where Jesus told the blind man in John chapter 9, go wash in the Pool of Siloam. He was blind. He had to walk all the way down to it, wash in the Pool of Siloam, but he was obedient to the Lord. But I get excited over these things. We see the intent to destroy Israel. The propaganda war is the worst war they are facing. John, we do have a couple of minutes left. Do you want to close this out with some thoughts? The propaganda war, us,
that's another front that Israel faces. So you got Hezbollah in the north, you got Gaza, you got Syria, you got Iraq, you got Iran, and Yemen, and then the propaganda war. I mean, my Twitter feed, I don't know why it is. Maybe because I stop and actually read it occasionally, and Twitter thinks, oh, well, you like to read this stuff. It is an anti-Jew hatred. Hate fest that I see on my Twitter feed every day. And unfortunately, what you're seeing is people on the right-wing side of things buying into it. We've seen them, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, they're gone, okay? I mean, Tucker does some good stuff, but he has Jeffrey Sachs on. Do you know who this guy is? He's Noam Chomsky. He's a leftist, Jew-hating professor. They have all these right-wing guys have on, John Mersheimer and Stephen DeWalt. Well, they wrote the book, The Israel Lobby. The Jews control everything. And it's unbelievable. So I really think you need to follow people. Carolyn Glick is good. I really think, met her many years ago, but didn't want to do an interview with her. If you're listening, Carolyn, give me a call. You got my WhatsApp, and we'll get that arranged eventually. But I really think for someone like her and Gadi Taub and those guys, this is their moment. They're in the right place at the right time to talk about these things honestly. And what you're seeing too, so Carol did a show the other day. This is what's going on. Jewish settlers, Orthodox Jews who live in Judea and Samaria are being sanctioned by our government as we speak. They're being debanked. The example is this one lady, she's protesting aid to Gaza. It's a terror organization according to the United States government. and we're insisting that they get aid, which they siphon off money and they fund their terror operations. And she's protesting that. And our State Department has debanked her. She's a mother of 8 because they don't like the message that she's saying. The United States government is shutting down a lady who's protesting against a terror organization because she lives in Israel and she's a Jew. There's no other way to do it. Oh, by the way, one other little tidbit. Her husband is an American citizen. We have a thing called the First Amendment. And so they are going around this with this information war, misinformation, and all this stuff. And I'm telling you, so whether you like Trump or not, the lawfare against him, they've got a template in place. I just saw today, these people are protesting. I saw a guy, he had a sign in London or in England saying Hamas is a terror organization. He was arrested in front of a bunch of Islamic people protesting. Saw a great graphic. Empty streets in London. London protests when Hamas attacks Israel. And then the next picture, the same streets are full of people. The protests that happened in London when Israel defends itself. It's a great graphic. And so these guys are being convicted, pled guilty. They're being sent to prison. They're out of prison space in England. So what are they doing with it? These guys? These things have just happened in the last few weeks. They're being sentenced to 2, 3, 4, 10 years in prison for posting on social media, and they're now being sent. It was front page of the Telegraph yesterday. They're being sent to prisons. They're entering into contracts. Estonia happens. One of the Baltic states. We have some extra prison space. Send those guys over here. We'll take care of them. This is in London. I mean, I went to London. I went over to the British Museum, and they had the Magna Carta there. You know, one of the great documents about liberty, the foundational document. Something is going on, and everything's been flipped upside down. So I don't think we have a First Amendment. I mean, we may not be able to do these things much longer without. But so the guy in London, the chief of police, or one of the suburbs around there, said, "We're going to arrest people, and if you're going to do this in America, we're going to charge you here, and then we're going to file an extradition request to bring you to England to try you here." Now, the election's important. Do you think Kamala Harris, government, Department of Justice, would stand up and say, "We're not sending our American citizens over there. They have a right of free speech"? So whether you like Trump or not, you probably have a better chance under Trump.
Yeah.
To get I'm just telling you, the whole thing is out of control.
Yeah.
And so I have a pretty good, I don't sit around worrying all the time. I'm kind of peaceful guy. I have the peace that passes understanding, right?
Amen. I would say this. I think I hear a lot of people in my circle, our circle, that say they can't vote. I mean, they've got whatever. I think that is one of the most foolish things you can do right now, is to not vote. I promise you, a no vote, a no vote is a vote for Kami Kamala. So do whatever you want, but I was never censored until somebody else became president. I had no problem standing up for the right to life. I don't always have the favor of the government with that, but I could protest it. We have gender issues, we have psycho stuff, and I'm looking at some of us are supposed to go and travel to the UK in about right after our conference here the following week. And looking at that, they're threatening to arrest people like us. And I agree. Would Kami Kamala want to get me out of jail? No. No. Would we have October 7? I doubt October 7 would have happened if the Biden administration wasn't in charge. I have a hard time believing a lot of the dynamics that we have in this world would happen right now. I want to have the freedom to be able to preach the gospel and to be able to continue like this. But nevertheless, I just think it's a terrible thing to say, I'm just not going to get involved. Well, that's like, Pilate did that. He said, I'm going to wash my hands of this. And so, do what you want. But John.
I can tell you, a lot of this stuff is legal. It's lawfare. It's legal nonsense. It's legal war against people. And they'll say, well, you might be found not guilty. Yeah, you'll be bankrupt from paying lawyers to defend you. That's why a lot of these people even involved in the election protests and legal stuff, they pled guilty. Why? Because they're being bankrupted by the legal fees. And listen, I'm a lawyer. I'm not against legal fees, okay? But it's very, very bad.
Yeah.
You have a question?
What did they do to the guy in Telegram, the owner of Telegram in France? They arrested him. Why did they?
Well, they arrested him because he.
Let me repeat the question, so everybody online can hear it. So your name is.
Jeff.
So Jeff asked, what's the story on the guy from Telegram that was arrested in France?
So, look, there's a lot so everybody who's for free speech jumped on that and said, oh, look, what they're doing. So, look, Telegram is it's the Wild West, man. There's all kinds of bad people on there. The Russians, Ukrainians use it in the war, and it's propaganda and all this other stuff. And so they arrested the guy because they want to get control of it. They're doing the same thing. I mean, I heard Kamala talking about we need to shut down X and Twitter. And so part of it was to bring a guy in control. Now, my understanding is he's been under arrest in France. He was kind of lured there. They arrested him, and now he's going to say, okay, well, I'm going to make some changes, moderation changes to Telegram.
So it was reported the U.S. State Department requested from the French police to arrest him, and they charged him with things like pedophilia, anything that was on Telegram. Interesting about X, so Tim Waltz, that's the guy's name? Tampon Tim? So that guy, he praised Brazil for censoring X, but he did it on X. Wait a minute. Did you ever catch? Yeah. See, so this is the world we live in. Okay, we're out of time, but I want to say this for everybody online also. So we're going to start, we have next month, it's October 13th here. With Naphtali is going to be joining us from Israel. Follow him, check him out on Instagram.
Is that the social media guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I met him.
He's fantastic.
Okay.
It's H Naphtali. The first letter's H, Naphtali with an H in the beginning. That's his first name actually starts with an H. But he's going to be here October 13th. It's going to be outstanding. We'll have, they're still working on things here, tech and things like that. And we're looking forward to other things that we're going to be able to do. We'll bring shirts next time, things like that for you guys. We want to make it like a prophecy conference when we do it. What happened was this first time here, and also is a brand new building. Again, I want to thank Pastor Tim and 412 Temecula for this. So John Howard.
PowerPoint free.
Yeah, we'll have PowerPoint. We'll get tech. There's a lot of things to work through. But John also was up in Woodland Hills. I was there Friday, came back yesterday for the grand opening here. John came back. John's really tired. He's been up since like 2:30 this morning or 3 this morning. And I said, John, so I have it set up for a 30-minute interview, then you preach. He goes, I don't want to preach. I just want to sit down.
Let's just
ask me questions.
Is that okay?
But it was great to be in here. And like I mentioned, Pastor Tim has David Harris Jr. He's got Dinesh D'Souza coming. He's going to have his once a month on Wednesday nights. And I'll be here once a month on Sunday nights with various guests doing a little mini prophecy conference for y'all. But thank you all for joining us. And it was great to finally get kick-started with this. And great to see you guys. John, you want to pray as we wrap up? And thank you, everybody, for joining us online also.
Yeah, let's pray. Lord, as difficult as it seems to be some days when we look at the things around us, we're give us the attitude that you told your disciples to have, that you should feel blessed that you live at this time. And we just pray that we'll be able to take that knowledge and understand the times, and just share, give us opportunities to share the gospel with people in a difficult time. That we'll be able to take the truths of the Bible and the truths of archaeology and the truth of prophecy and all this stuff and present it to people in a way that they will see this compelling case that the Lord, as it says in Zechariah 8, is zealous for Zion, Jerusalem, and he was going to return there to rule and reign. We just look forward to that day. Pray that you'll protect us, give us strength, give us opportunities. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And maybe we'll have taco trucks. And November 8, 9, and 10, we have the big conference here too. Thank you, everybody.
That's the best way to